looking at the UN Global Report, for example, that three things that we can say across all the data is the importance of gender, that is, there's specific differences of how violence affects boys versus girls and girls versus boys, on the kinds of violence used against boys and girls. What happens later on as a result of that violence is also filtered by gender. We also see huge cultural differences, so the issue of whether social norms support or do not support different forms of violence, whether against children or against women. And the third, the whole issue of poverty and social exclusion, whether the material conditions of life create stress on parents and who does the caregiving, and whether there's a gender division of that or whether it's exclusively in the hands of women, and particularly stressed, poor, low-income women, are all, that we see as sort of crossing globally. So what do we know about the linkages between? We know that early childhood exposure to violence, either witnessing it or experiencing it, either in the home or at school, is related to later adult use of violence. We know that women who have experienced violence in the home from a male partner, that is sometimes a trigger or related to their use of violence against children. We see more forms of severe physical violence against boys than against girls in most settings. Psychological violence we see slightly more against girls in many settings. Sexual violence we see almost twice as much against girls in most settings. So those gender trends we see. We know that girls who grow up in households where they experience violence or witness it are more likely to accept violence from a male partner later on. And we know that boys who witness or experience are more likely to use it later on against a female partner. So all those things come together. And we know that stress at the community, so stress not only income, but stress as defined by how many hours we have to work and whether there's help, whether there's good childcare available, whether all the work for caregiving is done by women as opposed to not much men helping out. We know those factors also contribute to higher rates of violence against children in the home.